Ladies and gentlemen, there is something unsettling about a man who chooses solitude not because he's lonely, but because he finds clarity in silence. He doesn't fear being alone. He welcomes it, and that makes him dangerous. You see, most people run to crowds, to noise, to distraction, because sitting alone means facing the truth. But this man, he faces it every day. He's not afraid of the dark parts of himself. He's dissected them, studied them, and made peace with them. While others fear solitude, he thrives in it. Because when you sit alone long enough, you begin to see the world as it is, not how it's sold to you. He's dangerous, not because he wants to control anyone, but because no one can control him. He listens before he speaks, watches before he acts, and while the world drowns in opinions, he remains rooted in awareness. You can't manipulate a man who spent hours arguing with his own mind and came out wiser. He is not aggressive, but his stillness is more terrifying than any outburst, because it holds depth, precision, patience. He doesn't react, he calculates. And in that calculation is a storm waiting in silence. People misunderstand such men. They label them strange, antisocial, cold. But truthfully, they are just detached, free, unentangled by social games or shallow distractions. They've walked through fire alone, and now nothing burns them. He knows himself, and when you truly know yourself, you can't be used, fooled, or broken by anyone. He doesn't need applause to feel worthy, doesn't seek attention to feel alive. His validation comes from within. That inner peace, that unshakable self-trust, is what makes him a mystery to others and a threat to every fake system built on fear and conformity. The man who spends time alone is a mirror, and mirrors scare people because they show you what you truly are. He may be silent, but within that silence lives vision, discipline, and power. So the next time you see a man who's comfortable in his own company, understand this: you're not looking at weakness. You're looking at the most dangerous kind of strength, the kind that needs no audience, the kind that cannot be tamed, the kind that rises alone. Solitude births mastery. This is not just a poetic phrase. It is a truth hidden in plain sight. In a world that constantly screams for connection, validation, and attention, the man who steps away from the crowd is misunderstood. But the reason he steps away is not because he lacks something. It's because he has something that most people haven't discovered yet. A calling to understand himself deeply. He realizes that greatness doesn't come from noise, but from refinement. And refinement is born in silence. To spend time alone is to choose the forge over the feast. It is to walk away from distraction and willingly enter the fire of one's own mind. While others seek comfort, he chooses challenge. He sits with his thoughts, his past, his pain. He explores the caverns of his mind without fear. Most people don't want to do this. They numb themselves with endless scrolling, shallow conversations, and mindless entertainment. But the man who seeks mastery knows that everything external is a reflection of the internal. If he cannot master his inner world, he will always be at the mercy of the outer one. This man begins to use solitude not as an escape, but as a tool, a weapon, a sacred space where he can cut through the layers of false identity and see himself clearly. It is in this clarity that he discovers discipline, the kind of discipline that doesn't depend on motivation or praise. It comes from a decision to sharpen himself while the world dulls itself with distraction. He reads, reflects, and rewires his thinking. He builds new habits, not to impress others, but to evolve into the version of himself that exists beyond comfort. In silence, he practices. He studies his flaws without ego, his strengths without arrogance. He isn't trying to prove anything. He's trying to become something. While the crowd focuses on appearance, he focuses on essence. While they perform, he prepares. And that preparation, done in isolation, becomes his advantage, because when the world is watching, he doesn't shake. He's already been tested by the nights he spent alone, battling his own weaknesses. By the mornings he rose without applause to stay committed to his path. Solitude reveals what the world hides. It strips away the masks and forces honesty. There is no pretending when you're alone with yourself. And that's where the mastery begins, when you stop pretending, when you can face your truth without flinching, without running. That's when the real work starts. The man who chooses solitude is not antisocial. He is intentional. He understands that presence is power, and to be fully present, he must first be fully self-aware. He knows that spending time alone is not about isolation from people. It's about insulation from noise. It's a sacred recalibration, a resetting of values, direction, and purpose. Through this solitude, his perception sharpens. He becomes more aware of people, energy, and intention. He begins to see what others miss, not because he's trying to, but because his mind is quiet enough to notice. While others are reacting, he is observing. While they are lost in opinion, he is rooted in awareness. The mastery born in solitude is not just mental. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It's physical. The man who has cultivated himself alone has depth. He brings something rare into the world, a stillness that cannot be shaken, a power that doesn't need to be proven. He becomes dangerous not because he seeks domination, but because he has tamed his own chaos. He no longer fights battles outside himself, because he's won the war within. And when a man does that, he becomes unpredictable. He's no longer driven by impulse or insecurity. He moves with purpose, not pressure. That kind of man can't be manipulated. He doesn't react emotionally. He doesn't fall for flattery. He doesn't chase approval, because in the solitude of his becoming, he has learned that real strength is quiet and real confidence is still. Mastery is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It walks quietly, leaves deep footprints, and needs no recognition. And the man who has chosen solitude to refine himself, he is the embodiment of that mastery. He learns to think deeply. That is what sets him apart. While most minds are cluttered with borrowed thoughts, distractions, and noise, his mind becomes a sanctuary of clarity. When a man spends time alone, he no longer thinks to impress others. He begins to think to understand. The absence of constant opinions around him creates space. Space to observe, to reflect, and to go beyond surface-level thinking. He stops parroting the thoughts of the world. He questions everything. He questions the rules he was taught to follow, the beliefs he inherited without examination, and the fears he was conditioned to accept as truth. Alone, in silence, he starts to deconstruct all of it. His mind becomes his own, not a reflection of media, culture, or society. That's a rare thing. Most people speak not from knowing, but from echoing. They repeat what they've heard, not what they've lived. But the man who thinks deeply doesn't settle for second-hand knowledge. He demands to see for himself. And thinking deeply doesn't mean just being intellectual, it means being present, fully immersed in a thought, tracing its roots, its implications, and its hidden truths. In solitude, his attention sharpens. He no longer skims through life, he penetrates it. He notices things others overlook. He catches the subtle signals in behavior, the contradictions in speech, the emptiness behind certain smiles. He sees through people not with judgment, but with understanding, because his thoughts are no longer clouded by social obligation or emotional noise. He doesn't just react, he reasons. Most people are afraid of their own thoughts. That's why they keep themselves busy, constantly surrounded by others, endlessly entertained. They're not afraid of boredom, they're afraid of silence, because silence is where their real self starts speaking. But this man, he leans into that. He faces the thoughts others run from, the uncomfortable truths, the questions with no easy answers. He doesn't distract himself from them, he dives into them. And in that depth, he finds insight. His thinking becomes layered. When someone speaks to him, he's not just hearing words, he's hearing the emotion behind them, the intent beneath them, and the pattern that led to them. When he makes a decision, it's not based on impulse, but reflection. He knows the weight of choice, he knows the ripple effect of thought turned into action. That's the power of deep thinking. It makes a man responsible for his mind, and therefore his life. Because he spends time alone, there's no rush to respond, no pressure to impress. He lets ideas breathe. He allows silence between thoughts. And in that silence, creativity emerges. Solutions appear. Perspectives shift. While others drown in mental clutter, he builds inner order. He doesn't just consume knowledge, he digests it. He applies it. He questions its relevance, its origin, and its impact. He is not easily swayed by trends or swamped by popular opinion. Because he's developed the discipline to think for himself, this makes him unpredictable. Not because he's erratic, but because his mind doesn't follow the crowd. He sees things from angles most never even consider. His originality is not loud, but piercing. And because he's not constantly influenced by others, his insights are pure, untainted by the herd mentality. He can walk into a room and remain unaffected, not out of arrogance, but clarity. He knows what he stands for, and that's because he's spent enough time alone to define it. When he speaks, people listen. Not because he demands attention, but because his words carry thought behind them, intent, precision. He doesn't speak often, but when he does, it lands. And it lands because it comes from a mind that has practiced the art of deep thought, not shallow reaction. Thinking deeply is a rare skill in an age of overstimulation. But this man has made it his nature. In his solitude, he became not just a thinker, but an observer of thought itself. He watches his own mind. He tracks its patterns. He doesn't believe everything he thinks. He interrogates it. That level of self-awareness is rare, and it makes him powerful. Because in a world where everyone's rushing to speak, to post, to prove, he remains still. He listens, he contemplates, he moves slowly but with direction. And that depth of thought, that calm precision, it makes him a man you cannot predict, cannot manipulate, and cannot ignore. He depends on no one, not because he has something to prove, not because he's bitter or prideful, but because he has tasted the strength that comes from self-reliance. In a world where most people cling to others for emotional security, identity, and direction, he has chosen a different path, the path of independence. And that decision didn't come easy. It was forged in pain, solitude, and self-reflection. But in walking that path alone, he discovered something powerful. When you stop depending on others to complete you, you finally begin to meet your whole self. He's not the kind of man who seeks constant reassurance. He doesn't wait for someone to validate his dreams or hold his hand through difficulty. He's already walked through fire on his own. He's already learned what it means to pick himself up without a shoulder to lean on. That kind of experience builds more than strength. It builds certainty. a quiet, unshakable certainty that no matter what comes, he can handle it. This does not mean he is cold or disconnected, quite the opposite. Because he doesn't need people, he can choose them. And when you choose someone from a place of wholeness, not neediness, the connection is real. It's not built on fear of being alone or fear of rejection. It's built on clarity. That's the difference between dependency and presence. He's present with people, but not bound to them. He doesn't cling, he connects. He has trained himself not to seek external rescue. When the world gets heavy, he doesn't panic. He retreats into his own strength, the kind of strength built in long hours of solitude. He doesn't crumble when things fall apart. He doesn't collapse when someone leaves, because he never handed over the key to his peace in the first place. This independence makes him dangerous to those who benefit from control, because how do you manipulate a man who isn't afraid of being alone? How do you guilt someone who doesn't need your approval? You can't. And that's what makes him powerful. He may be silent, he may be still, but his presence says, I carry myself as a deep calm in him. It's not the kind of calm that comes from a comfortable life. It's the calm that comes from facing everything and still standing. He has built an internal foundation that cannot be shaken by someone leaving, someone lying, or someone misunderstanding him. While most people bend and break to avoid rejection or isolation, he walks away with grace, because he's already familiar with the road alone. It doesn't scare him, it liberates him. Depending on no one doesn't mean he does everything alone. It means he can, if he has to. That's the key difference. He welcomes help, but he doesn't require it to survive. He values companionship, but he doesn't need it to feel whole. That's a man who has met himself at his weakest, sat with his insecurities, and transformed them into peace. In his world, freedom is not about doing whatever he wants. It's about not needing anything from anyone to feel grounded. He builds, creates, and grows, not because someone is watching, but because it's in his nature. His motivation is internal. His drive is quiet but relentless. He doesn't collapse when support disappears. He adapts, he adjusts, and he continues. This resilience makes him a mystery to people who rely on constant validation just to function. He's not moved by flattery. He's not crushed by silence. Because he has learned to be his own source. That doesn't make him invincible. It makes him complete. And when a man is complete within himself, he becomes impossible to control. He's not chasing love. He's not chasing approval. He's chasing growth, truth, and peace. Most people look for someone to save them from their loneliness. He looked within and saved himself. That's why he walks differently. That's why he speaks with weight. And that's why people either admire him or fear him. Because a man who depends on no one can never be broken by anyone. He cultivates self-awareness. This is the silent power that grows in the absence of distraction and noise. In the company of others, it's easy to hide, play roles, to wear masks. But when a man spends time alone, he is stripped of all pretense. There is no one else to impress, no script to follow, no performance to maintain. In this solitude, the raw truth of who he is comes into sharp focus. And this truth, while sometimes uncomfortable, becomes the foundation of profound self-awareness. This awareness is not a sudden revelation. It is a slow, deliberate unfolding. It is the result of countless moments spent observing himself, not with judgment, but with honesty. He learns to watch his own reactions, to understand his emotions, and to recognize the patterns that have shaped his behavior. He sees how often he reacts out of fear, how often pride colors his decisions, and how much of his identity is borrowed from others' expectations. This kind of insight is rare because it requires courage, the courage to face what many would rather ignore. The process of cultivating self-awareness transforms his relationship with himself. He moves from a place of unconsciousness to consciousness. Instead of being driven by impulses and automatic reactions, he begins to act from a place of intention. He becomes the observer of his mind rather than a victim to its chatter. This shift is subtle but powerful. It means that when he feels anger rising, he can pause and ask why. When he notices insecurity creeping in, he can trace its source. When doubt whispers lies, he can confront them with truth. Through this growing self-awareness, he discovers his strengths and weaknesses without denial or exaggeration. He stops lying to himself about who he is or what he is capable of. Instead, he embraces himself fully, the light and the shadow, the courage and the fear. This honesty breathes humility, not weakness. It gives him the freedom to grow, because growth begins with knowing where you stand. More importantly, self-awareness allows him to see his role in the world more clearly. He recognizes the impact of his actions on others and understands that he is part of a larger web of relationships. But because he is self-aware, he does not lose himself in this web. He maintains his center. He can engage with others authentically without losing his sense of self or compromising his values. In solitude, he also develops emotional intelligence. He learns to identify and manage his emotions instead of being overwhelmed by them. He understands that emotions are messages, not commands. This emotional mastery helps him navigate conflicts, build deeper relationships, and maintain peace within himself, even in turbulent situations. People who do not know themselves well are often controlled by their feelings, but the man who cultivates self-awareness, walks with emotional balance and clarity. His self-awareness extends beyond his inner world. It sharpens his perception of the external world as well. He becomes more attuned to the nuances in conversations, the unspoken cues in body language, and the underlying motives of people around him. He listens deeply because his mind is no longer cluttered with noise. This presence makes him a powerful communicator and a trusted confidant. People sense his authenticity and are drawn to his grounded nature. Cultivating self-awareness also means he is less likely to be reactive. Instead of responding immediately to provocation or criticism, he pauses and reflects. This pause creates space for wisdom to enter. It prevents unnecessary conflicts and preserves his energy. It allows him to choose his battles and invest his time wisely. Because he understands himself, he knows what matters and what does not. This journey of self-awareness is ongoing. It is not a destination, but a lifelong practice. The man who spends time alone knows this deeply. He commits to this path because he understands that true power is not in controlling others, but in mastering oneself. And mastery begins with self-awareness. In a noisy world that values action over reflection, the man who cultivates self-awareness stands apart. He is quiet, but his mind is sharp. He may not shout the loudest, but his presence commands attention. His self-awareness is his strength, his shield, and his guide. It makes him not only dangerous, but wise, resilient, and free. He builds resilience like no one else. When a man spends time alone, he faces life stripped of the usual comforts, a world without distractions, without the easy support of others to lean on. In solitude, he confronts his fears, his failures, and his weaknesses head-on. There is no one to blame, no crowd to console him, and no immediate escape from pain or difficulty. This exposure to raw reality teaches him resilience, a kind of inner toughness that can't be learned in comfort or in company. Resilience born from solitude is not just about enduring hardship. It's about transforming pain into strength. When a man stands alone in the storm, he learns that struggle is inevitable, but defeat is optional. He understands that life will break him down, but it is his choice whether to remain broken or to rise again. This understanding does not come from theory, it comes from lived experience. He's been through nights of doubt, days of isolation, moments when giving up seemed like the easiest path, but in those moments he learned to dig deep and find a well of strength he didn't know he had. This kind of resilience is forged in silence. Without others around to shield him, he becomes his own protector. He develops the habit of self-encouragement, whispering to himself in the dark that he will survive, that this too shall pass. This inner dialogue becomes a lifeline. It is a voice of reason, hope, and courage amid chaos. Over time it becomes so strong that no external storm can silence it. Resilience built in solitude is different from mere stubbornness or denial. It's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It's about facing reality with clear eyes and steady heart. It's about accepting pain without allowing it to define him. It's about learning from failure rather than being crushed by it. When he falls, he doesn't ask for a hand. He asks himself how he can rise. That question alone is a mark of resilience. Resilience gives him independence from validation. When a man can endure hardship alone, he no longer needs others to reassure him that he is okay, that he is worthy, or that he is strong. His worth is no longer tied to external approval or recognition. He carries it within. This makes him dangerous, because he is not easily shaken by criticism, rejection, or loneliness. He has built a fortress inside, one that stands firm against the chaos outside. This resilience also equips him with patience. In solitude, he learns that growth is not instant. It doesn't happen overnight or in a single triumph. It is a slow, sometimes painful process. He learns to wait without losing hope, to persist without immediate reward, and to trust the unseen progress beneath apparent setbacks. Patience, born from resilience, teaches him that life's challenges are often a test of endurance rather than speed. He becomes adaptable too. Life is unpredictable, and resilience requires flexibility. When things don't go as planned, he doesn't collapse. He adjusts. He knows how to change course without losing sight of his destination. This adaptability is a survival skill developed in solitude where there is no safety net. He can handle whatever comes because he has practiced facing uncertainty alone. Resilience, cultivated in solitude, also builds emotional strength. When alone, he feels the full weight of his emotions, the fear, the sadness, the frustration, but he doesn't let them control him. Instead, he acknowledges them, processes them, and lets them pass. This emotional discipline prevents despair from taking root. He learns to stand steady even when the emotional tides are high. Because of this resilience, the man who spends time alone often appears calm and composed even in crisis. This calm is not an absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. It is a silent declaration that no matter what happens, he will endure. And endurance breeds confidence. When you know you can withstand storms alone, you no longer fear them. This resilience creates a quiet kind of power. It is not the flashy power of domination or control, but the deep power of inner stability. It is the power to remain whole when the world tries to break you. It is the power to keep moving forward when others give up. It is the power to be a rock for others, not because he depends on them, but because he has first depended on himself. In solitude, resilience becomes more than survival. It becomes transformation. It turns a man from fragile to formidable, from vulnerable to invincible. That is why a man who always spends time alone is dangerous, because his resilience is not borrowed from anyone else. It is forged within, unshakable and true. He thinks deeply, and this is one of the most underestimated powers a man can cultivate. In a world that values speed, quick answers, and constant noise, the man who spends time alone has the rare ability to slow down his mind and dive into the depths of thought. He isn't satisfied with surface-level understanding or shallow opinions. Instead, he probes beneath appearances, questions assumptions, and wrestles with complexity. This deep thinking shapes his worldview and gives him a clarity that most people never experience. When you spend time alone, you are forced to confront your own mind. There is no one else to distract you or to provide quick solutions. You sit with your thoughts, and sometimes those thoughts are uncomfortable or confusing. But it is in this space of solitude that ideas begin to take shape. Connections are made, and insight grows. Deep thinking is not simply about intellectualizing. It is about truly understanding oneself and the world at a fundamental level. This man learns to observe patterns in his own behavior, in human nature, and in life itself. He sees how emotions influence decisions, how habits create outcomes, and how beliefs shape reality. Because he has the time and mental space, he can reflect on the cause and effect of his choices without the pressure of immediate reaction. This reflection allows him to correct course, avoid repeating mistakes, and grow wiser with experience. Deep thinking also means he doesn't accept easy answers. He questions authority, tradition, and popular opinion. He understands that truth is often complex and multifaceted. Instead of following the crowd or jumping on bandwagons, he seeks his own understanding. This independent thought makes him unpredictable, and yes, dangerous to those who rely on conformity to maintain control. He cannot be swayed by slogans or empty promises, because he has done the work of thinking through ideas critically and thoroughly. Deep thinking gives him a unique kind of creativity. When a mind is allowed to wander freely in silence, it can connect ideas in unexpected ways. It can invent solutions that others miss and see opportunities where others see obstacles. This creative thinking is not flashy or loud. It is subtle but effective. It often manifests as quiet innovation, steady problem-solving, and the ability to see the big picture while managing details. Another benefit of deep thinking is emotional insight. In solitude, he can explore his feelings without distraction. He learns to understand the roots of his emotions, the fears beneath anger, the desires beneath restlessness, and the wounds beneath bitterness. This emotional intelligence allows him to respond to situations with wisdom rather than react out of impulse. He can empathize with others because he has first empathized with himself. This man's deep thinking also extends to his purpose and values. Alone with his thoughts, he contemplates what truly matters to him beyond societal expectations or fleeting trends. He asks questions like, what is my mission? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? What does it mean to live a meaningful life? These reflections shape his actions and decisions, giving his life direction and coherence. He is not drifting aimlessly, but moving with intention. His capacity for deep thinking makes him a better listener and communicator too, because he has practiced careful thought. He listens not just to respond, but to understand. He processes information thoroughly before speaking, which means his words carry weight and meaning. People may notice that he speaks less, but when he does, it matters. This presence commands respect and invites genuine connection. Deep thinking can also make him appear distant or mysterious. Because he spends much time inside his own head, he may not always be immediately accessible to others. People who prefer surface conversations or instant gratification may find him difficult to relate to. But this distance is not a flaw. It is a consequence of his commitment to depth. He chooses substance over superficiality, even if it means being misunderstood. This capacity for deep thought is what makes the man dangerous to complacency and ignorance. He challenges not only others, but himself. He is constantly evolving, questioning and refining his beliefs. He does not settle for easy comforts or simple explanations. Instead, he embraces complexity and uncertainty as part of the human experience. This intellectual courage is rare and powerful. The man who thinks deeply has a mind that is a fortress and a forge. It protects him from manipulation and deception, and it shapes the raw materials of his experiences into wisdom. He is dangerous because he cannot be easily fooled, distracted, or controlled. His deep thinking gives him a clarity and strength that ripple outward, influencing everything he touches. This is why the man who always spends time alone is not just isolated or lonely. He is a thinker, a seeker, and a force to be reckoned with. Because in silence, he has found the power of profound thought, and that power is nothing less than dangerous. He understands himself in a way few ever do. Time alone becomes a mirror reflecting every part of his being, his strengths, weaknesses, desires, fears, and contradictions. Without the distractions of social expectations or external validation, he is forced to face the raw truth of who he is. This self-awareness is not a fleeting glance, but a deep, ongoing exploration. It's a journey that requires courage, because it means confronting parts of himself that are uncomfortable or even painful. When a man spends time alone, he learns to observe his own mind without judgment. He notices patterns in his thoughts and emotions, recognizing what triggers anxiety, anger, or sadness. He sees where his habits serve him and where they hold him back. This kind of introspection builds a map of the self, a detailed understanding of his inner landscape that guides his choices and behavior. This self-awareness brings freedom. When you truly know yourself, you stop living according to others' expectations or societal norms that don't fit you. You stop wearing masks to please people or pretending to be someone you're not. Instead, you begin to live authentically, making decisions aligned with your true values and desires. This authenticity creates a powerful kind of confidence. There is no need to seek approval because you have already accepted and embraced who you are. Knowing oneself also means recognizing your limits. A man who has spent time alone understands his vulnerabilities and doesn't try to hide them. Instead, he works with them, finding ways to manage weaknesses without letting them define him. This honesty prevents him from falling into denial or arrogance. He is humble but strong, aware but not defeated. This deep self-awareness also sharpens emotional intelligence. When you know your feelings, you can regulate them better. You learn not to react impulsively, but to respond thoughtfully. This emotional control is crucial in relationships, in work, and in life's challenges. It allows you to communicate clearly, set boundaries, and empathize with others without losing yourself. The man who knows himself doesn't get swept away by drama or manipulation because he is anchored within. Self-awareness helps him to align his actions with his long-term goals. Many people drift through life without clarity about what they truly want. They chase fleeting pleasures or external rewards that leave them empty. But a man who spends time alone has the space to reflect on what matters most to him. He can differentiate between superficial desires and meaningful aspirations. This clarity guides him in making decisions that build a fulfilling life, not just a comfortable one. This self-knowledge also encourages continuous growth. Because he understands himself deeply, he can identify areas where he needs to improve. He takes responsibility for his development rather than blaming others or circumstances. This mindset makes him proactive in learning new skills, healing old wounds, and expanding his horizons. His self-awareness becomes a tool for transformation rather than stagnation. Interestingly, this profound self-awareness can make him appear intimidating to others. People who are not used to such depth may find him mysterious or even threatening. He doesn't conform to social scripts or engage in superficial small talk. Instead, he speaks with purpose and listens with genuine interest. His presence commands attention because it reflects a man who is fully present with himself. This level of self-awareness also protects him from being easily manipulated. When you understand your own triggers, fears, and desires, you can see when someone is trying to exploit them. You become less susceptible to emotional blackmail or deceit. This makes him dangerous to those who thrive on control and manipulation. He is not a pawn in their games because he knows the board well. The man who spends time alone and knows himself embodies the principle that true power begins within. External achievements, possessions, or status pale in comparison to the strength gained from self-understanding. This inner power radiates outward, influencing every aspect of his life. It shapes his relationships, his work, and his ability to face adversity with calm and clarity. His self-awareness is also a source of peace. When you know who you are, you stop fighting yourself. The inner conflict that plagues so many diminishes. You accept your imperfections and celebrate your uniqueness. This acceptance creates a foundation of mental and emotional stability that is unshakable, even when life throws its worst at you. This is why the man who spends time alone is dangerous. Because he has mastered the art of knowing himself, he cannot be easily led astray or broken down. He walks through life with a quiet confidence, born from deep self-awareness. And that confidence is a force that shapes his destiny and commands respect from the world around him. The man who spends time alone develops an extraordinary ability to observe and understand others without being noticed. This skill is born out of patience and quiet observation, qualities that only solitude can nurture. While many people rush to judge or react, he remains calm and attentive, watching closely without revealing his thoughts. This silent attentiveness allows him to see beneath the surface, picking up on subtle cues, body language, tone of voice, micro-expressions that reveal what others often try to hide. In a world obsessed with talking and being heard, this man understands the power of listening and watching. He doesn't feel the need to fill silence with noise or to respond immediately. Instead, he lets conversations unfold naturally, giving himself the space to process information deeply. This patience in social interactions allows him to gather insights that others miss in their rush to speak or be noticed. People might underestimate him because he says little, but in truth, he is constantly absorbing, analyzing, and learning. This kind of observation is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and insightful. He doesn't just see what people say. He senses what they mean, even when their words contradict their feelings or intentions. He notices inconsistencies and hidden motives. He can read the room, understanding the dynamics between individuals and groups. This gives him a strategic advantage in relationships, negotiations, and social situations. He can anticipate reactions and plan his moves with subtlety. As he spends time alone, he has honed his intuition, a quiet, inner knowing that often surpasses logic. His intuition is sharpened by reflection and experience, and it allows him to make judgments about people's character and intentions with remarkable accuracy. This sixth sense prevents him from being easily deceived or manipulated. He can see through facades and false pretenses because he trusts the deeper signals he observes rather than just words or appearances. This observational skill also enhances his empathy. By quietly watching others, he gains a deeper understanding of their struggles, desires, and fears. He recognizes the humanity in everyone, even those who seem distant or difficult. This empathy is not sentimental. It is rooted in awareness and respect. It allows him to connect with people on a profound level, without needing to dominate conversations or seek approval. His presence is felt as genuine and steady, inviting trust. Moreover, this ability to observe silently makes him a master of timing. He knows when to speak and when to remain quiet. He understands the power of pauses, the impact of a well-chosen word, and the importance of listening before responding. This skill is invaluable in leadership, conflict resolution, and negotiation. People are drawn to his calm and measured approach because it signals wisdom and control. Because he does not reveal his thoughts easily, he maintains an air of mystery. People are curious about him, often trying to decipher his intentions or feelings. This mystery adds to his aura of strength and danger. He is unpredictable in the best way, unbound by impulsiveness or the need for constant validation. His silence and observation creates a space where others reveal themselves, giving him an upper hand in understanding the social landscape. This careful observation is also a form of protection. In solitude, he has learned to be self-reliant and cautious about whom to trust. He doesn't rush into relationships or share his vulnerabilities with everyone. Instead, he watches and waits until he can discern the true nature of people. This cautious approach prevents him from being exploited or hurt. It makes him resilient and selective, qualities that are vital in a world filled with uncertainty and deception. His ability to observe without being noticed is not just about defense. It is also a tool for influence. Because he understands others deeply, he can guide conversations and situations subtly, without overt control or aggression. He influences by example, by well-timed words, and by creating an atmosphere of calm confidence. People often find themselves drawn to his quiet strength, even if they cannot fully explain why. This ability to watch and understand others in silence reflects a profound mastery of human nature. The man who spends time alone is not merely isolated. He is attuned to the complexities of people and life itself. This attunement gives him power that is invisible but unmistakable. It makes him dangerous, not because he is loud or confrontational, but because he knows, sees, and understands more than most ever will. And in that knowing lies a power that shapes his world in ways subtle, yet unstoppable. The man who consistently spends time alone cultivates an inner calm and resilience that is rare in a world constantly clamoring for attention and distraction. This calmness is not a superficial quiet, but a deep, grounded presence that withstands the storms of life. It is the result of turning inward repeatedly, learning to sit with discomfort, silence, and solitude without panic or restlessness. This ability to be still and centered becomes a well of strength that nourishes him in moments of chaos and uncertainty. When the world around him is turbulent, full of conflict, pressure, and unpredictability, he remains steady. This steadiness comes from having faced his own inner turmoil and mastered the art of self-regulation. By spending time alone, he has learned to observe his emotions without being overwhelmed by them. He understands that feelings are transient and that reacting impulsively only adds to chaos. Instead, he responds with patience and clarity, which disarms conflict and calms tense situations. This inner calm also fosters clarity of thought. In solitude, distractions fade, and the noise of the outside world recedes. This quiet allows his mind to process experiences, reflect on challenges, and find solutions with precision. He is not easily swayed by panic, rumors, or emotional contagion, because his perspective is anchored in thoughtful reflection rather than reactive impulse. This clarity helps him navigate complexity and uncertainty with a composed confidence that others often envy. This calmness cultivates resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from setbacks and keep moving forward. Life inevitably brings failures, disappointments, and losses, but the man who spends time alone has developed the inner resources to endure these hardships without losing his sense of self. He understands that pain and struggle are part of growth, and he faces them without fear. This resilience is not about suppressing emotions, but embracing them with acceptance and courage, transforming adversity into strength. His solitude teaches him that external chaos does not have to penetrate his inner world. This separation between outer turmoil and inner peace is a powerful defense against stress and anxiety. He creates a mental sanctuary where he can retreat to recharge and regain balance. This sanctuary is not physical, but a state of mind, cultivated through practices such as mindfulness, meditation, or simply intentional quiet reflection. It allows him to reset, regain perspective, and return to life with renewed energy and composure. This ability to remain calm and resilient also affects his relationships. People around him sense this tranquility and gravitate toward it because it offers a safe harbor in the storm. He becomes a source of stability for friends, family, and colleagues, someone who listens without judgment and supports without losing himself. His calm presence can de-escalate conflicts and foster understanding because it models emotional mastery rather than reactivity. This inner calm contributes to his decision-making. When others are rushing, panicking, or acting out of fear, he takes a step back. He evaluates situations with a clear mind and makes choices based on reason and values rather than impulse. This measured approach often leads to better outcomes, as decisions made from a place of calm are less likely to be regretted. His ability to stay composed under pressure is a strategic advantage that allows him to lead and influence effectively. This deep-rooted calmness also nourishes creativity and insight. In solitude, free from constant stimulation, his mind can wander and connect ideas in novel ways. Without the distraction of constant input, his creativity blossoms, and solutions emerge naturally. Many great thinkers, artists, and leaders have acknowledged that their most profound insights came during moments of quiet solitude. The man who spends time alone taps into this creative wellspring, enriching his life and work. His calmness and resilience transform him into a person who is both peaceful and powerful. He is dangerous, not because he is aggressive or loud, but because he embodies a strength that cannot be shaken by external forces. His presence commands respect, not through dominance, but through the quiet assurance of someone who knows that true power arises from within. This inner mastery allows him to face life's uncertainties with courage and grace, making him a force to be reckoned with in any arena. In a world where noise and haste often obscure wisdom and strength, the man who has cultivated calmness and resilience through solitude stands apart. His danger lies in his unshakable peace, his capacity to endure and thrive, and his ability to act with clarity and purpose when others falter. This is the power of spending time alone. Not loneliness, but profound connection with oneself that radiates outward and influences everything around him. The man who always spends time alone is not broken nor lost. He is becoming. In solitude, he sharpens his mind, fortifies his spirit, and anchors himself in truth. He learns to think deeply, feel fully, and observe silently. He understands himself so intimately that no one can define him. He reads the world with clarity because he's first read his own soul. He is calm while others panic, focused while others scatter, and strong while others crumble. His power isn't loud, it's rooted. It comes from the battles he's fought in silence, the growth he's earned in darkness, and the peace he's cultivated in stillness. That's what makes him dangerous, not to the innocent, but to ignorance, to illusion, to weakness. He walks quietly, but his presence shakes the ground. Because once a man becomes whole in his aloneness, nothing can break him again.